being part of a brand has upsides and downsides. I'm part of something, but in the end, I'm a supplier, I'm a vendor. And I turned down the deal and left and got down to the elevators, and it was like, oh, crap.
There is a moment in the history of Food Network that almost nobody talks about, and it might be the most important thing that ever happened to the channel. It did not involve a competition finale, a viral recipe, or a ratings record. It happened quietly, at the end of a contract cycle, when one of the most genuinely intelligent and creative voices American food television had ever produced simply did not renew his deal and walked away. No dramatic announcement. No farewell special. No press release with carefully worded sentiments from both sides. Alton Brown left Food Network the way a serious person leaves a place that no longer serves their purpose, without ceremony and without looking back for permission. Understanding why that departure happened requires going back to the beginning, because Alton Brown's origin story is one of the stranger and more interesting paths anyone has ever taken to becoming a television personality. He was not a trained chef who decided to go on camera. He was not a culinary school graduate who got noticed by a producer. He was, for most of his early adult life, a filmmaker. He graduated from the University of Georgia with a degree in drama and began his career as a cinematographer and producer. He was director of photography on the music video for REM's The One I Love and worked the Steadicam on Spike Lee's film school days. That is not the typical background for someone who would eventually become one of the most respected food educators in American broadcasting history. Good Eats. The shift came from frustration. A growing dissatisfaction with the food presented on television, which he found superficial and lacking in substance, sparked a profound shift. Brown was watching cooking shows in the early 1990s and finding them empty, visually flat, intellectually thin, content to show someone stirring a pot, without ever explaining what was actually happening at a chemical or structural level. He believed you could do something more ambitious, something that treated the audience as capable of handling real information. The problem was that making that show required culinary knowledge he did not yet have. So, in his early 30s, Brown moved to Vermont and enrolled in the New England Culinary Institute. He told the bitter Southerner, "Everybody thought I was insane because I had kind of established a career. But I knew I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing." Chef's Resource Food Republic. After leaving the New England Culinary Institute, the Browns moved to Atlanta, where they wrote and shot 2 pilot episodes of Good Eats, a cooking show with a format very different from that of traditional cooking shows. The pilot aired on Chicago's WTTW in 1998 before Food Network picked it up in 1999. What the network acquired was not just another cooking program. It was something genuinely new. Brown discovered that when he got to culinary school, he quickly found that he didn't have any natural talent for cooking. But he discovered that if he learned some of the science involved, what an egg needs, what acidity does in baking, that he could become a better cook. That discovery became the foundation of Good Eats. And his filmmaking background shaped every frame of it. His film background gave him a unique perspective on food television. He understood the importance of visual storytelling, clear communication, and engaging presentation. He applied these skills to create Good Eats. New Georgia Encyclopedia +2. The result was a show unlike anything on cable at the time. Good Eats combined cooking demonstrations with humor, character-driven skits, genuine food science, and historical context. It was not a cooking show that happened to be entertaining. It was an entertainment show built around the serious transmission of culinary knowledge. Good Eats combines cooking instruction with humorous skits starring fictional characters and discussions about the chemistry of cooking. The show received the George Foster Peabody Award in 2007 for being omnivorously educational and great cheesy fun. The Peabody is not an award that gets handed out casually. It is the kind of recognition that places Good Eats in a category with serious journalism and documentary filmmaking, not with reality television or competition formats. New Georgia Encyclopedia. Brown first joined Food Network in the late 1990s and was a host and creator of Good Eats, as well as the host of Iron Chef America, Cutthroat Kitchen, and a range of other series at Food Network and the Cooking Channel. For more than 2 decades, his name and the network's name were essentially synonymous in the minds of viewers. If you watched Food Network seriously, you watched Alton Brown. His role on Iron Chef America deserves particular attention because it illustrates something important about what made him distinctive. He was not there as a judge. He was not competing. He was the commentator. The voice that explained to audiences what the chefs were doing, why certain techniques mattered, what the judges were looking for and why. That role required the rare combination of deep culinary knowledge and the ability to communicate it clearly and entertainingly under live pressure. He was, in that setting, essentially a translator between professional kitchen expertise and general audience comprehension. Very few people could have done that job as well as he did. Variety. The biggest difference created by the Netflix streaming model, according to Brown himself, was that there is no commercial break every 4 minutes, and that changes the storytelling a great deal. That single observation, offered almost as a casual aside in an interview, reveals something crucial about the creative tension that had been building between Brown and Food Network for years. Commercial television structures its content around interruptions. Every segment is built to a break, every narrative arc is compressed to fit between advertisements. For a show like Good Eats, which depended on building genuine understanding and following ideas through to their logical conclusion, that structure was a constant constraint. The science of why bread rises does not respect 4-minute intervals. The history of fermentation cannot be adequately compressed into a segment designed to keep viewers from changing the channel during a commercial. Variety. Though his exit from Food Network was never formally announced, Brown's last deal with Food Network took him through 2020, and since then, he has quietly left their airwaves. The silence around the departure was itself revealing. This was not a situation where the network threw a celebration or issued a statement about their gratitude for his years of service. It was the quiet expiration of a business relationship that had simply run its course. The fact that neither side made much noise about it suggested that both parties understood the situation clearly without needing to explain it publicly. Variety. What Brown said when he did speak about it carried more weight precisely because of how long the silence had lasted. He told Entertainment Weekly, "I don't think goodbye. Goodbye is really final. Perhaps au revoir or adieu for now. I don't really think of myself as having left a place as much as I simply crossed the street to join one of my first loves. I had 20 pretty spectacular years at Food Network. I built a brand there. To be honest, if Netflix had taken a shot at Iron Chef without me, that would have broken my heart." The language there is precise and worth examining. He did not say he was pushed out. He did not say the network failed him. He framed the departure as a forward movement towards something he cared about deeply, not a retreat from a situation that had become untenable. But the underlying logic, when you examine it carefully, tells a more complete story. Cheat sheet. He left because he wanted to continue to work on a show that he was extremely passionate about from his time at Food Network. Iron Chef America was recently rebooted on Netflix, and Brown simply could not be a part of it. Iron Chef America had ended on Food Network in 2018 after running since 2004. The format had enormous potential, and the production team had been developing ideas for how to evolve it. Longer episode formats, deeper storytelling around the competing chefs, more time spent on the cultural and personal dimensions of the food being prepared. Food Network, according to accounts from people involved in the process, was not interested in pursuing those creative directions. The network had its own vision for where competition programming should go, and that vision did not align with what the Iron Chef team was proposing. Netflix, when it entered the conversation, brought a fundamentally different posture. One review suggested the new Iron Chef owns in on the importance of a chef's culture as it relates to their cooking, a delving which is only possible due to Netflix's ability to spend more time on each contestant. That additional time and depth were precisely what Food Network had been reluctant to provide. Mashed. The economics of streaming versus cable also matter here, though they rarely get discussed directly in connection with Brown's departure. Cable networks operate under advertising models that create specific content requirements. Shows need to deliver certain audience numbers to justify commercial rates. That pressure creates an incentive toward safe, proven formats rather than creative experimentation. Streaming platforms, particularly at the moment Netflix entered the food television space, were operating with different logic, investing in premium content to drive subscriber growth rather than optimizing for advertising revenue. For a creator like Brown, whose work had always prioritized depth and originality over broad demographic appeal, the streaming environment represented a genuine structural opportunity that cable could not match. Since leaving Food Network, Alton Brown has been working on a variety of projects, including a podcast and a series of live tours. His podcast, The Alton Brown Cast, features interviews with chefs, food scientists, and other experts in the culinary world. The live touring aspect of his post-Food Network career is particularly worth noting because it demonstrates the depth of the audience connection he had built over more than 2 decades. Touring a culinary variety show to sold-out venues is not something a television personality can simply decide to do. It requires an audience that is genuinely invested in you as a presence, not just in the show you happen to host. Brown had built that kind of following because Good Eats had always been, at its core, a personal project. His curiosity, his research, his sense of humor, his specific way of seeing food as a subject worthy of serious intellectual engagement. Kitchen Pearls. During the pandemic, Brown demonstrated that his relationship with his audience extended well beyond any network platform. He produced content through his YouTube channel specifically designed to help people cook with whatever ingredients they had available during lockdowns. Those videos reached enormous audiences and did so without the support of a cable network, a production budget comparable to what Food Network provided, or the promotional infrastructure that comes with a major television deal. What they had instead was an audience that trusted him, had learned from him over years, and actively sought out his perspective. That is a different and more durable form of cultural presence than ratings. The pattern Brown's departure reveals is one that runs through Food Network's entire history with its most talented personalities. The network was extraordinarily effective at identifying people who could connect with audiences around food, giving them a platform to develop that connection. And then, as those personalities grew into genuine cultural figures with options and leverage, discovering that its model could not accommodate what those personalities wanted to do next. The network that launched in 1993 with an educational mandate gradually redefined itself around entertainment spectacle, competition formats, and the kind of programming that could be produced quickly and reliably at scale. That redefinition made commercial sense given the competitive pressures of cable television. But it created a widening gap between what the network wanted to produce and what its most serious content creators wanted to make. Brown's departure from Food Network was a result of a combination of factors, including creative differences and a desire to pursue other projects. After hosting several popular shows on the network, he felt that he had accomplished all he could in his current role. He expressed a desire to explore new formats and ideas, which may not have aligned with the network's vision. The 21 years Brown spent at Food Network were not years of tension or conflict. By most accounts, the relationship was genuinely productive for a long time. Good Eats ran for 14 seasons. Iron Chef America ran for more than a decade. Cutthroat Kitchen ran for 14 seasons. These were not the outputs of a personality who was fighting with his network over creative direction. They were the outputs of someone who was working within a system that functioned adequately for the content he was making at the time. Kitchen Pearls. The change came when the question shifted from what could be made within the existing system to what could only be made outside of it. The Iron Chef reboot was not a project that could have existed in its Netflix form on Food Network. The structural differences between the two platforms, the commercial interruptions, the episode length constraints, the audience expectations built up over years of cable food television, would have required it to be something fundamentally different. Brown understood that. And when Netflix came calling with the creative freedom to make the version of the show that the production team had been imagining, the decision became straightforward. Fusing cooking, chemistry, and comedy, Alton Brown made a name for himself as a television host and Food Network fixture. His creative eye and quick wit captivated audiences of Good Eats, Cutthroat Kitchen, and Iron Chef America. In 2025, he brought that same humor to the page in his new book, Food for Thought. That continued creative output, books, podcasts, live tours, streaming projects, represents something important about what kind of presence Brown built during his Food Network years. He was never just a television host. He was a communicator with a genuine point of view about food, science, history, and education, and that point of view could find expression across multiple formats and platforms. The network gave him his initial audience. What he did with that audience afterward was always going to be on his own terms. PBS. The question his departure ultimately raises is not really about Alton Brown at all. It is about what kind of institution Food Network became over 30 years, and whether the version of the network that exists today would have signed the deal that brought Good Eats to cable in 1999. A show built around food science, character-driven humor, historical tangents, and the genuine intellectual pleasure of understanding why things work the way they do. That show required a network willing to be patient with an audience that came back not for spectacle but for substance. Whether that version of Food Network still exists is a question the programming schedule answers more honestly than any official statement ever could. Alton Brown did not vanish from Food Network. He outgrew it, the way the most serious people tend to outgrow environments that cannot keep pace with where their work is trying to go. He is still producing. He is still teaching. He is still treating audiences as intelligent adults who can handle real information delivered with genuine wit. He simply no longer needs a cable network's permission to do it.